Ladies, are you ready for some real talk? The Achievers Unfiltered podcast isn't a bunch of fluffy stuff about career fashion or networking do's and don'ts. It's real heart-to-heart conversations with inspiring leaders. It's from women, by women, and for women. Tune in for a panel discussion on today's hottest topics that women face every day. We'll also discuss things that rarely enter the conversation. Subscribe to the Achievers Unfiltered podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you like to watch or listen. We are here at Second Soul Studios, and I'm Kelly Jordan, and I'm your host of Achievers Unfiltered, where we're going to have an unscripted, unfiltered conversation about women and money today. So very excited about this, and I will let you lovely ladies introduce yourselves. Let's start over here with Elena.
All right, I'll go first. So my name's Elena Karasmani, and I am part of the management team at Valley Bank down in Bel Air. So women and money is like a very personal topic for me, something that means a lot to me, which is why I'm in the business of finance. But really my personal story and why it's important is at a very young age, I had a divorce in the home. My dad left at a young age, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she really didn't know a lot about finance. She wasn't prepared to be the sole provider of that house. So it really took a village and a community of like friends and family to make my life as normal as possible. But I feel like at that very young and impressionable age, I knew that like I have to be financially independent. There's just no way around it. Like I would never let someone control my stability ever again. And I feel like it was a blessing in disguise. No one wants to have like a broken home or experience, the stresses of finance at such a young age. But it really kind of built that foundation for me to be able to be a provider for my family. I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I am able to provide my two kids with that stability and have a plan and a course of action. I have a great partner who provides as well. So it really kind of instilled, that I would never rely on anyone. So, and being a woman in finance of all places has always been, a challenge because it was a very male-driven environment for the longest time. And that's really taken a turn in the last, I'd say decade. We've seen more women step up in finance and make a name for themselves. And I'm just so grateful to work where I work, and they really empower women and know that it's important for us to be independent. So, I'm just happy to be here and happy to talk about it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yay.
Yay.
First one done. No.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm Susan Washburn. I work at Provice Management Group. I am a partner as well as a senior financial planner, and we are in Clearwater and Tampa. And my story goes, we all have money stories, and mine started when I was, I tell people I had a really charmed life until about age 30, that I was checking off all the boxes. I had a thriving career, beautiful home in New Orleans. I was married and starting my family, so what could go wrong, right? Everything's great. And then two events derailed my life. The first of them was Hurricane Katrina, and kind of something that we've all kind of seen the hurricanes from Ian, and it's brought back a lot of memories. But what happened is we had 8 feet of water in our home, and we left before the water came, but we relocated to a little town called Vero Beach. And while I was busy rebuilding I have 2 boys, their lives, getting them in school, my husband, now my ex-husband, was looking for a job, I delegated my financial affairs. And that, in hindsight, wasn't my best decision because the next event that happened was a divorce. So here I was, educated as an attorney. I thought I was a fairly bright woman, but I was now alone, lacked all financial knowledge. That wasn't my wheelhouse, and just embarrassed by how little I knew. So to regain control of my life, I knew I had to get wiser, I needed to get smarter, I needed to get savvier about money. And long story short, it led to this path and to this career. So what I have found over the years is that as I've shared my story with other people, especially other women, how many people are in the midst of their own financial hurricane. But what I do realize, I find it my purpose to help women get smarter about money so they feel confident about the decisions they're making. They have a plan. It's so important to have a plan and to start young. And hopefully, when you get to that point, you'll have financial peace, financial freedom, and it's really a countless blessing, I think. So that's how I got here. Wasn't the plan, but life often doesn't go quite as we expect.
My friend.
Hello. Yes, I'm Deborah Jones. I am Vice President Branch Manager for Regions Bank. And my story's very similar. You know, I think women have three things that can affect their life: marriage, divorce, widowed, you never know. And so for me, you know, I got married at a young age, and my parents never talked about finances. That was in my age group. I think it was just kind of taboo. We just didn't talk about certain things, and money was one of them. And so I depended on a husband, and he kind of controlled those finances. So this is the day and age before you had direct deposit or, you know, cell phones or, you know, debit cards. And so he would, if I needed a check to go to the checkbook to go to the grocery store, it was like, well, how many checks do you need? And then, you know, payday, come and pick up my paycheck, and paid all the bills from his office, so I never saw them at home. So I really didn't know or understand the depth of, you know, where we were at financially, equity in the home. I just didn't understand all of that. I didn't handle any of it. So then comes divorce and, you know, wanting half the bills and half this and half that. I don't even know what we have. So I learned a lot from that and was able to, I married someone that didn't want to handle the finances, you know, and so, you know, there is a point where there's a his, hers, and ours that does work, and for us, it did temporarily work until I didn't work. I stayed home with the kids for about 3 years, and then I said, I can't do this. I'm too type A. I got to go. So the kids were doing well in school, and I just said, I'm going to go back to work. And my husband actually suggested, you know, applying at the bank, and I was like, really? Because that's really, unfortunately, not my forte. But it was the best decision I ever made. You know, I absolutely love the company I'm with.
And look at you now.
I got hired with them, and I never left. Yes. So I've been with them for a long time. They're great. Again, you know, much like you, you know, encouraging women, and I love and helping people. You know, and it feeds off to your family. You know, I have a daughter. You know, I have daughter-in-laws. You know, and I think it's really important to educate them as well, you know, to make sure that they're not dependent on a man. I'm not one of those, you know, you don't need a man in your life, you know, we need them once in a while. But
for some things.
Financially, I do think you should have some form of independence. And I think it's important so that you're not out there and trying to struggle and make the ends meet. I see this with women all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure, and you know, at the branches, you know, we see that. We see women come in and they have no idea what their husbands were, you know, investing in. They have no idea what their money was. They don't even have any idea where their money is.
And we hear that time. I feel like we've all heard the stories of, oh my gosh, I had no idea that we were in financial trouble, or I had no idea what my husband was doing with the money.
Absolutely.
Or you do hear that's a very common. But then, what was it that someone said earlier when we were talking about how women are now majority
85%
running
the day-to-day finances.
Running the day-to-day finances.
And I do find that it's probably more the older generation, you know, I would say older than me, and you know, where they're, you know, they were just accustomed to the husband controlling everything. Or if it's, you know, somebody that maybe stayed home with the kids. I watched you have to Google this video of Edith and Archie, her asking for $200 from Archie. It's funny that we're doing this because I was watching this video.
You were just watching,
hysterical.
Yeah.
But she wanted to borrow $200, and you know, she's the housemaker. She's like, "Don't you think what I do here is worth $1 a day?" And then she started calculating how many years they've been married, and she's like, "You owe me."
I'm going to take that one home with me.
Yeah, right?
But it was really
We'll have
cute.
to put a link in the podcast to watch that.
So, but anyway, I just, you know, seeing those women come in and they've taken care of the home, they've taken care of the kids, and and they're kind of left in the dark, and I feel for them because you want to try to help them find and guide them and
Financial wellness is a thing, and it just we take care of our body. We talk about that. We hire a trainer when we need to get in shape. We have spiritual. We have mental health has gotten a lot of press in the last few years, but I think it's still really important that we talk about financial wellness, because the reality is, I was looking up some stats that women, 43% of them worry on a daily basis about money, and 59% weekly. And so money is a huge stressor for women, and it's not a subject we talk about. And I think we need to take away some of the stigma, some of the things we were taught as a child, that ladies don't talk about money.
Yep.
If you talk about money, you don't have money, or isn't that tacky? Or, and I think that even with this generation, we need to keep, you have young children, you have grandchildren, I have sons, and they've always heard about money, because I think it's important whether they're boys or girls, but especially
you bring up
for
a
women.
good point, though, that we, as a society, we invest a lot in, going to the gym or, going to the doctor, doing all the, but wealth, you think of wealth management. Okay, so you have to be uber rich to have someone look and help with your finances, and that's so not true. It's extraordinary having all three of you here, because you each have a personal story of how you got into the finance world, and then you're very successful in your own right. So let's talk about something on the side, as far as women who are just coming in, like you've all experienced, just coming into a situation where they now need to know how to run their own finances, and maybe their family's finances. Maybe it's not just their personal, maybe it's their family's, and they've never done it before, whether they're young, whether they're older. What advice can you give? Because there are resources out there, and that's definitely, a big part of Achievers is helping people. So people who are listening to this and thinking, I need to get my money healthy. I might be healthy and working on myself, but are my finances healthy? Is my future? You mentioned telling your kids about, invest in your 401k, even if you can't go to dinner. What advice I would love to hear from each of you, because you're kind of each looking at it from a little bit of a different view. What if someone is, oh my God, where do you start when you want to become financially healthy?
I think the biggest burden is getting yourself in and asking for help. Or I think a lot of women, it's a vulnerable topic, right? Especially when it's all, especially when it's all put on you and you weren't accustomed to that. So now you've been in the dark all these years, or a traumatic or devastating event happens, and it just like when our mental health starts to break, we kind of stay away from people, we kind of shelter in, we don't want to talk about it, we compartmentalize. And I think the first step is really taking control, going into your bank, talking to your banker, the manager, your investment advisor, and just saying, hey, I need help, I do not know where to go, because that's where we're the experts. That's why you have a bank. That's why we're in the business that we are, because we're here to guide you through those life events.
I think we're all financial cheerleaders.
Absolutely.
And people don't always think that, because I think, to your point, I asked a bunch of my colleagues, what tips do you have? And one of them said, if you don't control your money, it will control you. So you need to get the tools, you need to find the people that can help you. Now, that may be family, it may be, I'm a financial planner, so that's in my wheelhouse. It might be a bank. You all have different resources and types, but and sometimes it starts with a budget. It's not a bad word just because it starts with B. Budget's just kind of what comes in and what goes out, because I think if you can live beneath your means, that's half the battle right there. If you spend every penny and then some, those are the people I see that struggle. If you don't learn that lesson early on, it's really hard to, start living a lifestyle and then be told, oh, we got to
scale back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
There are so many resources online, and I'm sure Regions as well as Valley and all banks have budget toolkits or Valley's really big on vision boards. What is your short-term, long-term goals? It's when you really itemize the necessities and then the wants and your goals, long-term, short-term, you really begin to see where you can cut back on, expenses that aren't necessary. And then you can start looking into saving. And it doesn't matter if it's $20 a month, like just to have a goal of a certain dollar amount a month really starts, the whole ball rolling, where you end up putting more in if you got a bonus check, or say you sold something at a garage sale. I mean, I've seen people kind of be ruthless and find money when they need money. They find ways to make and earn money. Women are relentless. We're like the only creatures I know that can adapt the way we do.
It's important too to think about what's the purpose of your money.
Absolutely.
Because I think that puts it in are you saving for retirement? Are you saving for your kids to go to college? You're saving for your grandchildren. What lifestyle? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And all of those questions that you've posed, we have to answer. But I think sometimes when we talk in financial and technical terms, we don't resonate with people. I think that it's a language that's scary. It's unfamiliar. I mean, we teach our kids a foreign language in school, but we don't teach them the language of finance. It's just, if kids don't learn this at home, or people don't learn this in their childhood, they got to learn it somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I mean, they only just started teaching in schools how
Yes.
to, no one knew how to balance a checkbook, and it wasn't something, I know that unless you were, there was simple math or calculus, but they weren't teaching you how to put together a budget.
I remember going to accounting class and learning how to run a business, but
Right,
you got to
right.
run your house like a business.
Right.
You really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And credit cards. Young people don't
Oh,
understand
yeah.
credit cards, do they? I mean, you got,
It's free money.
yeah.
It's free money. Well, you mentioned being scared. So what about someone who is in the position where they're just now having to take control of their finances, but they're scared? Maybe they're in trouble, because money can be scary, especially for someone who doesn't have it or owes a lot. Things like, oh my God, I had no idea because I'd never paid taxes, and now all of a sudden the IRS is after. What advice do you give to someone who wants to take that step but is very scared of the consequences and scared of financial business and going to the bank and talking to a banker? Because I'm sure you have all seen someone who's come into the bank, or someone who's come into,
Right.
and they're nervous and they're scared and they don't understand and they need help. What advice can you give someone like that?
Well, just like you tell your children, you can only go up from here, So let them know that it's okay. You're not the only one. I think that's a big thing. Sometimes you feel like you're the only one, and I'm embarrassed, and you shouldn't be embarrassed. You should, be proud of yourself for taking that step and coming in and asking for help. I do agree that knowing your bankers is a huge step in the right direction. Because if you have somebody that you know, like, and trust that you can come to, then, being part of AchieveHERS and everything else, you can say, I know a gal,
I know someone.
I mean, it's not always, it might not always be you or, or the banker or the investor or somebody that they need to talk to. It may be their insurances that need to be reevaluated. So there's a lot involved. If somebody is going through a traumatic experience, they need to have resources. And I think that's where we come in, is by having resources for people. And so but asking a family member or asking your banker, if you've got somebody,
Right.
or your investor, do I'm having trouble with this, just talk. And to your point, Susan, just opening up and having conversation.
And I think with women, they want to know. I find as an advisor and as a planner, I really have to kind of try to establish a rapport and try to understand, because there are two sides of money. We know all the technical stuff inside and out. We know budgets, and we know insurance, and we know investments, but there's another side of money. There's emotions involved. There are relationships. There's lifestyle. And we have to have clarity in that part of the side of money to help get us to the other part. But I think trying to establish I do this with my clients, is they want a connection. They want to know that I know what. I have a client every year. She sends me a picture of all the grandchildren, and she writes on the back, Susan, this is who you're working for.
Oh,
But
I
she
love that.
But she reminds me
Yeah.
that this is her priority. This is her
Right.
heart. This is her soul. And that, yes, she and her husband need money to live off of, but the grandchildren are really where her thoughts are. And it's good for her to remind me, but I think, when you have a relationship, whether it be with your bankers or with your advisors, we know as people. I mean, this morning I was calling clients, I knew down in South Florida to say, hey, how are you? Right. And I think that's one of the things that makes this industry so wonderful for women is we do get to help. We do get to use some of our compassion, some of our empathy, and really work to help people build their lives in the way they want to live them. So that's the side that people don't see. But I think as women, we do that extraordinarily well.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Yeah. So, this podcast will air much later, but we just came out of Hurricane Ian, and it's a good point. Right now, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are worried financially because of what just happened, and some people have lost everything, which you know from your experience with Hurricane Katrina.
And you said your mom.
And my mom as well, yeah. And it's
a daunting
scary.
task. It really is to start over again. So when you do ask for help, to Deborah's point, you are starting, and that's the first step. And I think if you can I wish women would talk more about money. I said earlier that it's like, we don't talk about
taboo.
Religion, we don't talk about politics, we're told don't talk about sex, but we don't want to talk about money, and we really do need to, because it's an important tool for us to be able to use.
There have been a few times in previous podcasts that it's come up that we should, I don't know how we're ever going to get there, but talk more openly about money and about finances and about what people get paid.
Yes.
Because we were talking a little bit before about how we still don't get paid as much as someone who's doing the exact same job but happens to be a man, which is, of course, still frustrating. We're moving in a better direction, but we were just talking about before, the banking industry is shifting, and there are a lot more women who are working in that industry.
And I just looked up
planning,
something here that I think we still, in the financial planning and advisory, we're only about 20%.
Wow.
And so that's not a huge number.
No, it's not.
Especially when there's this huge transfer of wealth going to women because of baby boomers, we live longer, women are working. So there is this transfer of wealth going on, and it's happening. And we're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
But we have certain needs we need as women, and it's important that, you find that professional you can work with who hears you. But also some might have to get a reality check. You may think that you're retiring at age 50 and maybe not.
Yeah.
What have you done to do that? You hear these stories of, I think some of, our 30-year-olds who are socking money away and want to save and save and save. But women also are great savers. We're great at budgets, as you were putting together. But sometimes we forget that we got to take that next brave step and invest, because that's a way to kind of help guarantee. Not guarantee, sorry. Can't say that word.
Can't say guarantee.
Trigger. No. But to maximize your savings, it's really one of the go-to options for sure. Yeah. I think I was going to say, it's to your point, 1 in 2 women statistically feel like they're not fairly compensated in comparison to the job that they do. And then to your point, it really is, money is tied directly to emotion. So what's nice, though, is if you look at statistics, the millennials, I don't know if they're Gen Z, Gen X, I don't know what is after that, but 60 and 80% of them think money and finances are tied directly to the emotion of feeling independent and secure. So when they think of security, they think, almost 80% think money. And then if they think of independence, 70% think money. So, and I think that's really, it's great to see that women are associating the two and understanding too, but I still think it's that taboo topic that we don't get really raw with, what we make and what we've had to go through, or the mistakes that we've made. I mean, a lot of people have had to rebuild credit or start from the ground up, no savings, no retirement plan, and, they're 30, 40, just starting it, so I think it's
And the importance of starting it as young as you can.
exactly.
I mean, there's this wonderful thing called compounding interest, and if you don't know what it is, I'll let you go Google it. But it's I think Warren Buffett said it's the 8th great wonder of the world, because it's a great tool to, grow your money over time. And so we need that education. We need it at home. We need it in the school. And children learn from what they see. So you learned from your mom.
I did.
I remember my mom, when she wanted to see how much money she had in the bank account, would drive up to the teller window in the day and say, "What's my balance?" And then she kept writing her checks until it was gone. Yes. And so we all learn differently. And it's powerful what our children see. I have 2 sons. And from the time they had jobs in high school, I opened something called a Roth IRA account. It's a retirement savings sort of account. Mm-hmm. But they knew early on that this is a tool that they can use. I said, well, you're out of luck. You can't touch it till you're 59 and a half, except for a few little exceptions. And I didn't tell them about the exceptions. And one of my sons had a girlfriend at the time, and she's just like, what are you all talking about? I mean, no one had ever talked money with her. She goes, I didn't even know. And I don't know that it's that she wasn't interested. She was, but no one had had the conversation with her. Mm-hmm.
And that isn't a conversation that a lot of people, you talked about your kids and how you talk about money.
Yeah, we do.
And it's very important. And I think because of what each of you do, you're going to do that. But that's not the norm where we are talking about money and finances, and so that's where it gets
Deborah's
scary.
kids have a different reaction.
Right.
Like, why do you always talk about money? Because I don't want you to be like me. I don't want you to start late in life. But yeah, there was a statistic here that I was looking at. Only 20% of women that were surveyed in this one particular survey said that they felt sufficiently prepared by their parents to manage finances as an adult. Yeah. That's 20%.
Well, none of us, I think, had it where our parents talked about money.
Love my parents, but I don't think they prepared me financially.
Not at all. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I learned at a young age that money was like almost a negative thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like it ruled my world. My world flipped upside down.
You just knew you were going to be independent. You weren't going to let yourself get in that situation.
Right, because it was like waking up and becoming an adult overnight. And I hated money for the longest time, but that's what drove me to master it almost, or be accomplished. So
what about someone who wants to get into this industry? You said that it was the best decision you made when basically your husband said to you, why don't you go work at the bank? And you're like, the bank? What?
Yes. So he's retired from the post office. So at the time it was, I had worked in retail for years, so it was really not conducive to family. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I mean, I really missed out a lot with my kids when they were younger. And so that was, the point of staying home for about 3 years and getting work-life balance, figuring it out. And so then when he's, I said, I need to go back to work, and need to do something. The hours were conducive to the post office, nights, weekends, holidays off, so it was like,
I see where he was getting at.
I actually have a family life.
Yeah.
So
and he could see you too.
Right. Exactly. So it was a life changer event, not just for my family, but for my finances, because I know now that when I retire in a few years, I will be independent. If something happens to my husband, God forbid, but if something happened to him, I know I'll be okay. I've done my investments.
What a great feeling.
I know I've got my plan. And I just think that the sooner you start that plan, the better. And so getting into the financial industry is eye-opening. It's rewarding. Mm-hmm. If you love helping people and you're passionate about making people's lives better, then I think banking is a great industry to be
I think
in.
it's funny you said that, because I think people think, oh, well, if you get into banking or finance, you just must really like numbers and math.
I'm an English major.
Yeah. You were a lawyer.
A lawyer.
Yes,
I
a
know.
lawyer.
I'm psychology.
Psychology, right.
I think psychology is a great major to get into. I got into the industry after Katrina, I went to work for my family's wealth management as their compliance person. And eventually I am a certified financial planner, which is kind of the gold star of planning. So that kind of was how I got into it. And the more I love the helping people. I love if I need a really sophisticated Excel worksheet, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go find some young person in the office and say, hi. But if you put me in a room, I've helped clients, elderly clients who've had their identity stolen. I'm sure you've done things like that.
Daily.
Regularly.
Sadly.
But it doesn't, it's not only the money. I stress to people it's a relationship. And I think a lot of psychology majors would find it to be a fascinating watching how families handle money. Some of them are very challenging.
You learn what to do and what not to do, for sure. And I think it's great. Like, I got into banking while I was in college because it was just a regular set schedule. I was doing like the whole hostess, bartender, server, and I was out late, then going to school in the morning, and money was never guaranteed, which you guys know that was important to me to make sure I had money coming in because I was paying for myself. So I think anyone in, college or needing like a stability, I mean, you get the holidays off, you get most of the times weekends off, you get the time back for school. Most banks help support college tuition. Like, they have so many programs. So I just think banking people do. My family to this day goes, "You're terrible at math. How have you made it so far in banking?" And I'm like, "I know, I hate math. I don't know why."
Isn't it funny? But that's what people think.
It has nothing to do with that. I know. It really has.
It's not calculus.
It's not.
It's math. And women think that I think we're taught that we're bad at math. In elementary school, I read that girls are really strong and they feel confident in math, but something happens by the time they get to high school where, when I play golf sometimes, the ladies are like, "Can you keep score?" And I'm like, I can't keep score. And I'm like, what do you mean? You can't add 5 and 3 and we're only playing 9 holes, ladies.
Right.
But I think it goes to the mindset that
maybe it shifts when we are becoming most independent, right? You graduate high school, that's when you want to eventually move out, you're going to college, you're on your own. Maybe that's when we start getting fearful. Most women are like, "Oh, this is all on me now. I don't have my parents, I don't have my husband, whoever, your counterpart, whoever that may be. Maybe that's why we tend to
I think you mentioned an important tool that we talked about, steps people can take, and I call it an emergency and opportunity fund. When you are starting out, one of the first things that it's really good is to put 3 to 6 months of living expenses aside.
Yes.
So when the car breaks down or the AC goes out in the house or whatever, a hurricane comes along, you have some money there to help you out, and it's a really good tool. It's one of the basic foundations. I won't go into debt because that's a whole nother thing, but when you have the ability, you really should start setting money aside. That's another way. It's just a good tool. It's something all of us should have. I always thought during the pandemic, if more people had had an emergency fund when everything shut down, it would have made life so much easier for so many people. Because when women are thinking about money and it's our biggest stressor and how are we going to pay the bills, because it's interesting, men tend to think of their money of growing wealth. Men put saving for retirement as their number one priority. Women are, let's pay the bills. Let's make sure the house note's getting paid. And they prioritize, in about number 5, they say, "Oh, we should probably save for our own retirement." And I'm like, well, you really should move that a little bit up the list. But
so how do we change the conversation? How do we make our colleagues, our constituents, our friends, our family, how do we make them more comfortable talking about these things, seeking help, being able to kind of make that next step so that us as women can become, financially secure and it's not such a scary thing? How can we change that dialogue? Other than us doing this podcast, that absolutely is going to change people's lives.
Yeah, we're changing lives. I think talking about, same thing with, mental health. We just have to talk about it. We have to break the stigma. I think talking about it, but knowing your resources. Go on Google. Google a financial plan or a budget toolkit.
Even just a budget, I guess, is a good place to start.
A budget.
Yeah, a budget's a great place to start.
Go to your bank's website, and for Valley, we have a whole learning center. It's all updated articles to how you want to afford for retirement, plan for retirement. If you want to purchase a dog and take care of a dog, what to expect. the whole wide range of like things.
No.
I mean, but go to your bank's website. Like there's so many tools and features on
I know
how
we
to
do free consults, so when people
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
come in and talk, we'll sit there and you have to do the homework though. You have to. I'm back to you have to know what you have, and lots of times after divorces, after a death, people don't know that, and it's sometimes it's a huge homework project. Figuring out everything you have, where it is. I think you just have to kind of say one day I'm going to put it all in a pile and tackle it a little bit at a time. I think you don't want to get overwhelmed by it. If you have a good friend or trusted family member, that might feel a little bit more comfortable. But I think you'll find that women tend to be willing to seek help more so than men on financial matters. So if you're willing to be brave, I think when someone meets with me, I don't come in with a mindset of judgment. I want to get to know you. I try to put people at ease and say, look, one of my questions is if you won $1 million tomorrow, how would you spend it? Give me 3 general ways. Because I'm trying to see how you think. Most people say they want to do something for family or they want to do education, and just kind of figuring out who you are, what makes you tick, what keeps you up at night. Money keeps me up at night, and I don't like that. So I had to put myself on kind of a plan. Here's my retirement date. Here's what I want to achieve. How long will my retirement be? And to realize with any sort of financial plan, it changes. It's not supposed to be, we did it in 2022, and we never have to look at it again. You keep looking at it because life
happens.
it does.
I know one of the things that we do is financial wellness programs. And if you can go and attend one of those, we offer them to businesses for free. We do them for not-for-profits. I do a ton of not-for-profits. And those are people really getting themselves out of a hole. They're reevaluating their life. So even if they don't have any money, you can start somewhere. And so if you can attend, a financial wellness program, or if you're a business owner and you can provide one to your people, that's a great start, because it's not about coming in and we're not about coming in and opening accounts and all that stuff. And that's what they think.
Yeah.
It's really about educating people and giving them a resource as we need. That's the biggest issue, is where do I go?
And people for work, 401ks tend to be one of the principal benefits. Usually someone has to come in at least once a year and meet with all the participants. Take advantage of that. That is a source of individual time, knowledge, where they can help you. And lots of times that's a starting point, because if you can take control just of a little piece or get some knowledge there. But when those educational opportunities, whether what Deborah's talking about, or 401k, or just start the conversation. I mean, if you're not sure if your salary is in line with other people, ask your coworker, how do you feel about talking about that? I've done that before.
Yeah.
I said, what are you getting paid? I said, we're good enough friends. If you
Good
don't want
for
to,
you, yeah.
if you don't want to
Yeah.
talk about it, great. But
Yeah.
that wasn't the conversation. I think you'd be surprised if someone, when you see someone's body language and their attitude, you know whether I've overstepped. But if you don't, didn't your mom teach you? If you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yeah.
Right.
And so sometimes that's what it does take, because if you as a woman are getting paid less, you need to be able to point out to your management why you belong in this category. This is the value you add to your employer. So I think those are ways that you can start.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. All 3 of you were wonderful. And hopefully this conversation continues and we talk about this more openly, because I think it's definitely a subject that deserves attention, and we'll just kind of keep talking, keep the conversation going. I ask everyone who does this, just a quick question, as far as the next subject that you would like the podcast to cover. I'll give you a second, and we've had mental health comes up quite a bit, and it was funny. Talking about salaries and money came up very early on, and it was our first or second podcast that we did. But what is a subject that, because we literally can talk about anything here, that you would like to talk about, either yourself or you'd like to learn more about, or you just think would be interesting, especially the ones that nobody wants to talk about? Anybody?
I think you could do definitely more in money. There's such a broad, there could be money in different sections of life as you get to retirement or if you're a widow. I think that it'd be great. And what I'm trying to work on to develop right now is just investments, just a primer on talking about why we have investments, what they do for us. Because I think when we present those opportunities to other women, it's less offset. You just don't, you're like, oh, that's no big deal.
Well, then it's also, if it's accessible and you easily explain, hey, this is for everybody and anybody can do this. I think that eases kind of the jump into it. It's money and finance can be very intimidating.
So,
yeah.
No.
That's good.
think, women in business is such a big topic. Women CEOs, women business owners, like how can we empower them? How can we talk about them more? How can we talk about mothers who are working full time or being the sole provider for their family? Like how do they balance that? I'm all about that right now.
And COVID put a tremendous pressure on working women, mothers who
Absolutely.
They all of a sudden became school teachers.
I can't even imagine.
Childcare shut down.
Thank God my kid was not in school because I don't know how people did it. I have no idea how people did it. Oh, I'm going to work full time from home and I'm going to teach my kid, fourth grade math.
Yeah. Which they do completely differently than how we were taught.
Yeah. But I just, oh my gosh. It was funny, someone brought up in another podcast talking about how, regular moms are super moms, but you're just a regular mom because you're a mom. If a dad just shows up, he's the best dad in the world, and how it's so different.
I had a professor in college way back in the day. She got her PhD, and there was a male professor, a young guy, and he set up the playpen in his office, brought the baby in, got students to take care, and wasn't he the best dad of the
most
year?
Incredible dad.
And she said, it was just a whole different standard. She said, I had 2 kids. I had to have childcare.
You could never have done that.
She could never have done that. And she said, because there was a little bit of bitterness there, and I understand that. I mean, he's like super dad, I'm super mom, and what about me?
Yeah, that's another one. What about you?
I think I would like to talk more about how social media impacts, everything we say. It's the podcast, right? But I think just social media in general, I watch, where I have family members that are literally afraid to, it impacts them like taking their children out by themselves. They're nervous because they see so much on social media. Even stuff, where the people are feeling like they need to be a certain level or they have this vision of the perfect mom or the perfect dad. It really, the reality, what is the reality of social media?
And how it's not real.
And mental health, with all of that.
It's a big mental health.
It impacts them financially, it impacts them emotionally. And I just, I feel like a bad mom because this mom's so, everything's perfect. Well, it's probably a shit show behind the doors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember I used to send a Christmas card, holiday card with my 2 boys, and if you knew how much work it took to get them
get
dressed.
that one photo.
I do know how much work it takes to do it.
And then I would write a letter, but I would tell all the behind-the-scenes stories, and people used to say to me, I just love getting your note because
it was realistic.
Real. Yeah, it wasn't like...
Yeah. It took me 3 hours to get this one shot. And still not everybody's looking at the camera.
No.
Oh my God, I love it.
Back in the day, I remember walking out of Sears. They had the portrait thing.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
Olin
we're
Mills
done, we're out,
too.
forget it.
Yeah.
You gave up?
I did.
I
never got those portraits.
Oh my God, you never got. Someone, you know how you can do the baby every month photo?
Yeah.
Okay. Baby every month, right? So this is just my advice to new mothers and, going to be another one myself. I so messed up. I did where you lay the baby flat, back, because of course the first couple months it's great. The baby doesn't really go anywhere. You're just going to lay it there. So take a nice picture. It's got the little sticker on there. It says, 1 month, 2 months. So adorable. Until they start moving. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get this picture anymore. And so the first couple of months, it's so great because it's pretty consistent.
On the day.
And then the last couple of months, there's a shift where you can see she's in flight on the way to get up. One of them, I think I even shoved a bottle in her mouth. I was like, yeah, you're just going to go ahead and the bottle's just going to be in this one. It's one of those things.
true.
It's
So
but
glad-
it's
yeah, I
but the
did.
pictures turned out great, right? And that's all that mattered. And I posted them, right?
That's all that matters.
So glad I don't
That
have to do
matters.
those when the start of school ones now, where you got to put their favorite book, what they're going to be when they grow up. I'm like, that's way too much
Yeah.
work.
Thank God St. Cecilia's just had a step and repeat. I was like, yep, there you go. Just take a picture in front of the step and repeat. I can just say it's pre-K3. There you go.
Yeah.
It's funny. Oh, well, thank you so much. And this was really awesome. And I really appreciate you. And Second Soul Studios,
Yes.
of course,
Amazing.
always so amazing.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Second Soul Studios is a full-service production studio with capabilities for photo, video, podcasting, editing, co-working, and more. Our photo video studio has a number of different backdrop choices and props to choose from. We also have a gourmet kitchen set, or if you're an upstart podcaster, you'll love our 4-person podcast studio. So what are you waiting for? Visit secondsoulstudios.com to book a tour today.